Good Thursday to you, everybody. Income 831. Welcome to week, boom, 6. Not quite at the halfway point. They say there are 16 weeks in a semester. There's 16 weeks that you attend, but the last one you're finishing up papers, you're doing tests. So we're almost to the halfway point, and I'm almost halfway through. This cup of coffee from who do we have here? From Black Rifle Coffee Company. I believe I picked this cup up in Scottsdale, Arizona. Fantastic company, veteran owned. So, if you see their stuff in the store, you got to have coffee. Anyway, at least I do. Okay, let's take a look at what you're going to be doing this week, and then we'll go back to the questions from last week and see what we might add that will be of use to you. So there are two things to be available to be aware of for you this week. First, we're going to continue our readings in macroeconomics. I've got another video. This is to help sort of flesh out the work and what's going on there. It's an interview with Don Tapscott, all right, there on YouTube. And this week, you have a new assignment. Yay! And by the way, we're going to continue this cycle of having things due on Wednesday morning, probably till after spring break, modular week. But you know what? Actually, let me take that back. If you like having things due Wednesday morning rather than Tuesday, and as I said before, I don't have things due on Monday morning because as much as your crazy life will allow you, rest on the Sabbath or spend time with family. I don't mean rest, but do things besides work. So I don't have things due Monday morning, instead Tuesday. But if you like the schedule, having it due in the middle of the week, we could put that in there, or we'll go back to having it due Tuesday morning. You let me know. Anyway, you have a new assignment given to you this week. If you go to the module and down to the last item, to assignments, you will see the link, or go into the assignment folder in Canvas. This is your organizational communication technology tool assignment. It's worth 100 points. What is this? Okay, so thus far, excuse me, we've talked a lot of theory in this class. This is an opportunity for you to put some of that theory into practice. All right, what this assignment allows you to do is to look at a organizational technology communication tool, either one that exists or one that should exist. It doesn't exist yet, but in your mind, it should be in existence. And for you to describe it and then pitch it. That is, this is why everybody should be adopting this organizational tool, much like you've been reading in Tapscott and Williams in macroeconomics. All right. So you can pick something that is already in place, or you can pick something and give it a name that should be in place, based on your experience or just based on what you believe to be a good idea. And then you'll do a write-up, and then you'll do a 10-minute max video presentation in which you pitch the tool. It doesn't matter to me, how you film your video, but you want it to look good. So, don't film it with a potato camera. But you must embed your video on a YouTube channel. So if you don't have one already, go to YouTube or just go to Google and type in, how do I get a YouTube channel, or how do I set up a YouTube channel? And then put the link to your video at the end of your written description of the technology tool. Canvas is funky, man. It's fussy. Sometimes I can see videos that get uploaded and put in there. Sometimes it don't work. So if I can't see your video, I can't give you the points for the video. Make sure it goes on the platform YouTube and that you include the link. All right. If you have any questions about this, come and ask me. Okay. This, week, I guess it's not quite last yet, because today's the 19th. Your papers were due. All right. 2-3 days ago on the 16th. I am looking at them now. Typically what I do is I start by, sitting down, sort of glancing through them, reading through them, kind of getting a sense where everybody is at in the class. Okay, in the class, then I will start grading them. I'm going to give you what I hope you'll find useful feedback from me. All right. Um, Here's how I tend to grade these. Excuse me, allergies are still just beating me up. You will see from me um, in intense and intensely interested comments and markings for the first 2 or 3 pages of your paper. And what you're looking for and what I'm looking for is, are the things that I'm commenting on being repeated throughout, both in terms of, yeah, hey, do more of this, and yeah, hey, don't do that. All right. So if you don't see marks on, like the last 2, 3, 4 pages, that doesn't mean that they don't need some work. It means apply all of this stuff that you see on the first, 4, 5, 6 pages to the whole thing. And except for when you're working with a copy editor, that is someone who's just correcting, your typos and your mistakes. And I am for as much as I write, I'm really a lousy typist. I should just take a couple of months and lash my fingers to the keyboard and improve that, because I probably would write a lot faster, because there's a mechanical process. So I always have a copy editor looking for those mistakes. That's not what I'm doing here. I mean, if there's something that's glaring, I'll say, hey, because I'm acting as your content editor, because I'm primarily interested in giving you feedback on how clearly you communicate through your writing, how well you undertake the research process, and how completely you are formulating an academic style paper, because there is a framework and there is a certain rhythm, and there are things that are expected at certain parts of the paper, and they have to contain certain things, because it's a format, it's an agreement. Okay, so I'll be looking for that. All right. So as the feedback comes in, you may see from me a little note in the comments that I can put on your paper through Canvas. Hey, let's get together and discuss. You're not in trouble. All right. That just means there are some particular things that I want to ask you about. And it could be anything ranging from your research topic to, some of your methodological considerations, or your writing abilities, these sorts of things. All of the comments and all of the discussions that is you and I getting together are all geared towards your professional development. All right, that's the point. None of it is here to knock you on the head. All right, we have to, as we develop in our craft, we have to seek out useful criticism. When I write stuff, I don't ask my mom what she thinks, because it's my mom. I mean, I could blow my nose on a tissue and go, oh, what do you think? It's my mom. What is she going to say? I turn the material over to people that I know the business and know something about what I'm writing, and will give me constructive feedback. And if something's wrong, they say, hey, this ain't working. All right. Or I'm just not following you here. Or I think what you're trying to say is this, excuse me. What you really said is that. That's the spirit that's going on here. Okay. All right. So take a look at the new assignment. Watch for my comments on your papers. All right. Let's take a look at the questions from last week. See what we might add. What we could fill in. Question numero uno. Number 1, despite the controversy on the science of climate change, there's a general agreement that a greener economy is emerging in Western industrial nations like the U.S. And I could tell you why, but that's not the point of the question. Do you see a new generation of energy prosumers as Tapscott and Williams envision? Okay. Um, Kai, yes, I believe that in the US and other Western countries, we are witnessing a new generation of energy prosumers, similar to what Tapscott and Williams predicted. Examples include individuals who install solar panels on their house and use batteries to store or share energy, as well as the emergence of energy efficient cars over the past 5 years. These prosumers are actively producing and using energy, aligning with Tapscott and Williams' concept in Weeconomics, which emphasizes collaboration and user participation within the marketplace and corporate world. Yeah, excellent. You went last, so we took you first. And exactly right. I mean, I have a neighbor that's actually, I have two neighbors that have installed solar panels, and part of the reason for doing so is public utilities, which are publicly held entities, are required to purchase power from the consumer if the consumer produces more power than they need. So they sell it back to the grid. Now, that's not strictly speaking prosumerism, okay? But there are individuals that in conjunction with industries put up things like windmills, and then make improvements on the windmills and pass that information back to the industry. Okay. Um, this is me. You can take it or leave it. You'll never see this on a test. I personally think windmills, they're not a good energy investment in terms of the energy required to produce the materials versus the energy that you get out of the product before the materials are worn out. And besides that, they're ugly as sin. All right, there, I said it, got off my chest. But Kai, good answer. Question number 2. Even before COVID, Regent University was moving towards developing the University 2.0, or where we're at now, 3.0 or 4.0, that features collaborative learning and knowledge co-production by faculty and students working together. What practical innovations would you recommend, like those discussed in Chapter 8, that Regent should fully embrace and implement now? The answers on for this question were really interesting to me, because there was quite a lot of variation. Maya, I thought this was very interesting. You wrote, when I started my current organization, I was excited to learn that it had an internal AI platform that is fed with all developed proposals and bid content. This eagerness eventually subsided after realizing that the AI platform was limited and primarily served this segment of the business rather than being everybody. At this point, I think Regent would benefit from the collaborative platform that is fed content and resources from teachers. It would be helpful to incorporate students and teachers' biblical perspectives, being that we are encouraged to make the biblical connection. It could provide content, thought-provoking questions. I think that's very interesting. Very, very interesting, because now there are many different types of artificial intelligence. Okay, that's sort of the rubric. The rubric means the red lettering. So the heading, the big category under which the things fall. Okay, much of what you encounter and think about as AI is a type of AI called a large language model. And that is, you ask it a question, you give it a prompt, whether this is, like ChatGPT or Gronk or I'm trying to think of another one, Gemini, stuff like this. Okay. You give it a prompt and you say, what is this, or what's the answer to that? Large language model goes out and searches a database, which in most cases is the entire World Wide Web, or at least the parts that it can get to, and then finds segments that, through a mathematical equation, the large language model computates by way of probability, should come first, second, third, fourth, stuff like that, and then spits out the answer. We'll see. The interesting question is, the interesting part of this process is the question, what databases is the large language model, the AI, drawing from? And you can set up large language models that only draw from a database that you specify. So if you had one at Regent in which students and teachers were dumping into about, what do I do to grow my spirituality? How do I balance work and school and still maintain my faith, these sorts of things, then you could use an AI, a large language model program, to generate answers for everybody to dip into. Interesting suggestion. Okay, question number 3. Tapscott and Williams advocate for scientific discovery, knowledge, and innovation to become more open in the U.S. during the next decade. Do you believe it will? Why or why not? Trinity. I want to believe it will because we are what we are. Okay, you wrote this fine. I'm just having a hard time reading. I don't know. I want to believe it will because what we are seeing of it makes sense. Okay. All right. I get you. Tapscott and William argue that openness accelerates discovery by breaking down silos and allowing bigger collaboration, and that aligns perfectly with where science and innovation should be heading, et cetera, et cetera. But then in your second paragraph, you get to the meat of the matter. But I'm also realistic. Openness challenges power structures. Universities compete for funding. Corporations protect intellectual property. Innovation is influenced by money and influence as much as idealism. So while I do believe that we will see more open models expand, especially in digital infrastructure, to make collaboration easier, I do not think it will be pure. It will move forward where openness creates competitive advantages. The next decade will likely be a hybrid model, like more transparency in some sectors and siloed knowledge in others. I think that's fair. I think that's a good answer. And you know, now me personally, and if you have this on the test, I wouldn't say boo. I would probably not use words like power structures. I mean, if you want to say private organizations have a right to protect their intellectual property and make money. I mean, and if that's not an agreed, then I'm just going to go. I know my neighbor has better snacks than I do, so I'm just going to wander into his house and help myself to the cupboard. No, okay, because and that's actually a foundational tenet belief of Christianity. Private property is a good thing. Now, how and where and why that came about, that's a different lecture. But that is. So if what you mean by power structure is, protects private property, yeah, you're right. It probably won't become super duper transparent because there's a lot of money sloshing around. And, it's not merely, say, the people at the top of a corporation that are interested and push this. I mean, I'm going to make a blanket statement here that I believe to be true. Okay, if you are anywhere, let's say, if you have anyone, okay, who's above the age of 50, all right, and this will be true sequentially, generationally, all right. You next, so you in your 20s and 30s, should be very interested in the rights of companies to maintain their intellectual property. Why? Because it's not merely CEOs, et cetera, that make money. In fact, although their salaries are often highlighted in the bonuses and things, and it can be very high, they're often highlighted and point to and say, see these greedy corporations as big numbers. The amount that the head of a corporation or the CEO or top tier managers make is a very, very small percentage of where most of the value and the revenue from the company goes. Do you know where most of it goes? It's either expended out in the form of wages, and then second is vested in the value of the company in stock and or bonds and or other things that are traded. Now, not all companies are public, but the large ones that we're talking about when we talk about scientific innovation are. And if cities want to run, if people want to retire, if fire departments, police departments, you know, not-for-profit organizations, local governments, state governments, federal governments, if they all are going to continue to function, they are all of us are counting on the revenue generated by the companies that goes back into the value of the company in which people are invested. And you might be saying, and this is not for you, I'm not poking at you, Trinity. It was a good answer. People might be saying, well, I don't hold any stock. I'm not in the stock market. Yes, you do. If you ever hope to draw money from Social Security, and I'm almost, you have any assumption that anything is coming out of it for all, is going to come out of it for all the stuff that you put into it, that money is tied up in the market. If you go to work for an employer and they have a retirement plan, a matching plan, that money is tied up in the market. So, yes, I agree. It's not going to be blown open like Tapscott and William suggest that it's going to be. And, the reason for this is sort of it might be called, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, not because I'm going to say something to upset you, but I want to make sure that I communicate this right. It is what might be called a collective capitalistic system. That is collective, that we are all vested in it. Capitalistic, that is, its primary function is to generate revenue, generate profit. All right. Okay, but good answer, Trinity. Question number 4. What do you think of the new model of collaborative healthcare? Is it or is it not a solution to the current U.S. health crisis? Okay, let's see. Who went first on this one? Austin. If collaborative healthcare were simply about calling insurance to collaborate on why my bill should be paid. I'm sorry, I haven't even gotten one line into this, and I'm already cracking up. Then we would have successfully been ushered into that era. However, I do believe there are significantly more benefits to collaborative healthcare. Tapscott and Williams suggest several reasons why. The idea of creative collaboration is important. I often consult several Reddit threads for ideas on my own medical questions. Class, what does the collective think about Austin going to Reddit for advice about anything? Maybe that's some feedback you should be giving. I haven't read the replies yet, but I digress. However, I do want simple advice. Also, there's often great suggestions on forums within other medical websites that provide me with advice on when to consult a doctor about a specific topic. Additionally, having a sense of knowledge to advocate for oneself at the doctors is very important. The specific that Tapscott and Williams suggests for curing the crisis, I believe, are not directly found in this book. It is common to see online virtual collaborations to provide online diet services that were previously unobtainable due to resources and accessibility. I believe the power of the modern internet and the elements that were obtained, obtained in the last 10 years since this book was written, proved to be a better example of crisis solving than the information the authors were exposed to at the time. Okay, good answer. Okay. So let me add a little bit, and yeah, I may ask you a question about this at some point. Okay. Yes. Collaboration, that is being able to see your medical records, being able to email a physician, which, I belong to a medical insurance group in which I have that option. And I can get on and see my dashboard and the medications I've been prescribed. I mean, it's like, woohoo. That can save time and some money because I don't have to go in, if someone that suffers from allergies. So I have some prescription medication, so I don't have to go in again to get a prescription refilled. I just, email and say, hey, it's that time of year again. And I'm like, can I have a refill? I go, yeah, sure. Okay. That's good. Okay. Here's your instructor's opinion. And if this comes up on a test, I'm going to ask you about my opinion, not necessarily whether this is the right answer or not, although I wouldn't give it to you, as my opinion if I didn't believe it was at least in the ballpark. Okay. The problem with the current U.S. Health care system, our healthcare system, is very, very simple. It just costs too much. That's the problem. And when the price of something, a good or a service is too high, what is the most effective means of lowering the price of a good or a service? It's to provide the market with more of that good or service. If you want to bring the cost down for something, increase its availability, increase the competition that the providers of those goods or services have to implement. Because you could go to Wendy's or you could go to McDonald's. You went to Wendy's or McDonald's, which I don't, or if you went to Chick-fil-A, which I don't. But if you did, you have a whole array of places that you can go and that compete. The problem with the U.S. healthcare system is it costs too much. And the reason that it costs too much, it is probably, now if there's another one that you think of, email me because it may have escaped my attention. It is the only major sector of goods and services in the U.S. economy in which the consumer, me, you, is completely unaware of the prices for the products and the services. Could you imagine if you went to, pick something, a restaurant, a garage for your car, a department store, and there were no prices on anything. And you got to the checkout, how much is this, going to cost? You let us take care of that. You'd be like, what? Wait, what? In the current healthcare system, prices are not only hidden from the consumer, they're hidden from the providers of the services. They don't know how much the stuff costs. Oh, but the billing department does. And why? Because there are little barcode stickers that get put on everything that you touch or touches you when you go in for service. If you land in the hospital and you have a can of 7-Up with a straw, there is a barcode sticker for that can and for that straw. That gets stuck on your chart and it goes down to billing, and with a little gun, they go doot, 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 and then out comes your bill. If we want to if we really want to do something to solve the healthcare crisis, not the only thing, the first thing we should do is require that prices be disclosed up front. Just print them. Number one. Number two, strip out, break down, eliminate legislation that has been put in place by lobbying groups who have a vested interest in keeping prices high. We're talking to you, American Medical Association, that allow healthcare providers to populate the landscape. Most of healthcare, most of the costs incurred with healthcare does not come from critical care situations in which someone's bleeding out. It comes from routine conditions that become chronic. That is something that somebody either catches or develops and is seen for over and over and over and over again. In Europe, for example, I've spent a lot of time there living and studying and working. And in both France and Italy, pharmacists have a license that allows them to do a certain level of diagnosis and then prescription. So if you go in, I stepped off a curb. I was living in Florence. Rains there, and when it rains, it really pours. So they have often very deep curbs and then gutters to handle. The water goes out into the Arno. I stepped off a curb and I severely sprained my ankle. The thing was just looked gangrenous, man. It was huge and green and purple. I was like, ah! So I went to a pharmacist, Farmacia, and she was able to diagnose with an x-ray machine in the back that I had not broken the bone, thankfully, that it was a severe sprain. That really the only thing for me was to put it in a brace, to begin a regime of painkillers because it just hurt like get out, and then to apply to it um, a medication to reduce the swelling by breaking up the blood that had collected. Did that all in one stop. Just walked into the pharmacy. So there are ways to structure the services that could open up the availability of service providers and push down the price by raising the competition. And if you did that in conjunction with publishing the prices, then the public would vote with their feet. I'm not going over here because such and such provides the same service that I could get here for less money. Orthodontics are an excellent example of how this has worked. I don't know if it ever was, all right, but insurance typically does not pay for braces. I know because I had 4 children and they all had braces. So orthodontists have had to A, compete in terms of their prices, and B, compete in terms of the schedule by which you pay for the services. So for all 4 of our kids that had braces, and one of them had braces for like 3 years. Okay, because the orthodontist wanted our business, they had flexible plans. We didn't have to pay all the money at once. We spread it out over the course of treatment, and therefore it became manageable for us because he was competing with other orthodontists throughout the town and the towns that are near our towns. In order to bring business in, he had to be flexible, both in terms of his prices and in terms of the process. And the prices come down. All right. So, yeah, I hope, that some of this technology and some of this cooperation will help solve this problem. But we could use this technology to make prices available, publish them online, and then put pressure on lawmakers to deregulate the industry to allow an increase in providers. That would go a long, long way. Now, of course, part of it is how we handle ourselves as customers. And, let's be honest, if you look at sort of the bell curve, we're not handling ourselves well. We're not taking care of our health. Okay. That would help too. But then having more competition and openness in prices would help a whole bunch. Okay. All right. So that's my opinion. When I give my opinion about an answer, as I ask of you, it is well considered. That is, it's grounded in research. I may ask you, what did I have to say? You agree with me or you don't agree with me? That won't be the point of the question. All right. Okay, everybody. Good job. By the by, if you didn't turn your paper in, yikes, you need to be in touch with me. Okay. I see from scanning through there at least 2 people. I've already talked to one, so that means there's one of you that I haven't seen anything from. Come talk to me. We're here to help and continue your development as a professional. All right. So, but watch for my feedback this week. Continue with your readings. Get started on your new assignment. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. I think about you. I pray about you often. And I will look forward to seeing you this week on Canvas. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.